Hey, what's up, guys? Looks like they're coming back on at the courts. I'm gonna check my audio settings real quick, make sure I'm not missing anything. Looks like they're coming back up. I got the loaded. They called the jurors back. They let everybody back in the courtroom. We might have some interesting news coming up. So stay in touch. Share this out. Let's get this out there because we could have some good news coming. We hope.
Good afternoon, folks. We're going to break for the day, and I'll let you decide again how many want to stick with
No
the
way.
Okay.
Break again today?
We ask for any alternative. You didn't raise your hand, and you're out of luck. What's it? 8 o'clock? You're welcome to come here at 8 if you want. All right, we're going to break for the night, and please don't talk about the case, read, watch, or listen to any account of the trial. No talking with other jurors, no talking with members of your household or anybody else, and don't read, watch, or listen to any account of the trial. Any questions? See you tomorrow. Have a great night.
Wow. So they are taking another break.
You can talk, but not about the case.
They're taking another break. They're calling it a day. Early day, apparently. This is ridiculous. They really should be sequestering the jury. The jury is being swayed by everything that's going on outside the courthouse right now. This is just stupid. Absolutely stupid. They should not be doing. The judge should be calling this.
What's up, Casey?
What up, man?
One of the jurors said we didn't sit in your chair, so I'm glad that they're a jury that follows the rules. All right. Anything else before we break for the day?
I presume, Judge, that the 6 jurors that are the alternates are still around today?
They are, and I'm glad you said something. I forgot all about it. We got to talk about that too. I want to ask Mrs. Herman if she'll bring those in. I want to talk to the other jurors, the 6.
Is the court going to keep them around again for long?
Yes.
Good.
And Jennifer, no, you don't want to identify the jurors, so they try to keep that quiet to where you don't even know who the jurors are.
I never did get around to talking to the jury about the sealing, and this courtroom's almost 100 years old. One of the few things in the well, I think I'm the second oldest thing in the room. It was built in around 1923. I think they actually started about 100 years ago this year. And this very ornate ceiling had a skylight.
Agreed.
Parts of it still remain. And there's a quotation from Abraham Lincoln that he gave to the Young Men's Lyceum of Springfield, Illinois in 1837. Right on the heels of a runaway slave having been caught and burned to death in St. Louis. And you can find it online, the exact quote. I'd slaughter it if I used to have it by heart, but I'd only get part of it right now. But anyway, it runs all the way around. There was a twin courtroom across the way, and that has been totally demolished. When in the 1960s, one of my predecessors up here, whose name isn't important, but he got into a little bit of a row with the county authorities. He was one of the.
That is correct, Megan. Yes, he can.
Anything to do with it, but anyway. They air-conditioned the district attorney's office, but not the circuit judge. Well, he was the county judge. But
So I have a theory about why they're dragging this out. I think they're trying to wear out the crowd, and that may be possible. I think it's terrible, considering we have a right to swift justice in this country. I'm gonna talk because he's babbling kind of about the building and some of the
jailed the county clerk.
The infrastructure and when it was built and that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna try to talk over him if that's okay. But There is one reasonable explanation as to why they're not sequestering the jury, and it's to potentially
the subject, although they did discuss the fact that the courts do have the authority to order things that are necessary. It seemed like the air conditioning probably was. Well, anyway, then they tore off the ceiling, and
thought they were going to get into something.
Now they're investigating whether it can be restored.
air conditioning.
Yeah, that's important. How about a mistrial?
We're not done.
So there's only one reason I can think of that they're not sequestering this jury specifically. And that would have to do with the fact that they are trying to allow the jury to make a decision with the understanding that there is tremendous disinformation being put out there, and that would be a logical fallacy for the courts to try and provide to a jury. Their job is not to worry about what's going on outside the courtroom, but specifically what is going on inside the courtroom. Now, that being said, this judge has done some interesting things that I think are they're not necessarily questionable. There's just not great statutes or precedences for them. And one of the things that's really driving me crazy right now is we know there are threats towards these jurors that are open threats.
Thank you.
The fact that they're not sequestering this jury really concerns me because of the fact that, it's not like Joe Biden has recanted on his statement of racism. BLM is gathering currently. We know that Antifa will, I'm sure, shortly be in the building if they're not already. Bricks are being laid around the city, as we saw during the Summer of Love last year.
Okay, everybody have a wonderful evening.
This is becoming a concern of mine in that there is just only two trains of thought. One is that they already have a verdict and they're afraid to come out and say it because it's going to cause the immediacy of whatever's going on in front of the courthouse to become unhinged very quickly. And I think that there is something to be said about an early morning verdict versus an afternoon or late evening verdict. They may invoke a different set of individuals who are coming out to play, so to speak. But this has gone too long at this point. And the fact that there has not been a mistrial produced at this point is, well, I don't know, Casey. How do you feel? To me, this feels like an incredible miscarriage of justice.
Honestly, in my opinion, it's ridiculous. But does it matter?
The fact that they're not sequestered really concerns me, not only for the ability for them to see clearly, but it also concerns me greatly because every day that they get to go home is another day that somebody is going to try and dox them, follow them, videotape them, threaten them. And I have concerns that there may already be some portions of that jury pool who have not felt comfortable and safe due to some of the stuff going on. And we're getting to a point now. Let me be clear when I say this. I am not calling for action other than for people who know better than to go out and then riot, to show up and protest at this point. That may be necessary in order to show support that there isn't going to be the types of consequences that are being flat out threatened against these juries. Is to have counter protesting saying, let the verdict come. I don't know. I don't think it's time to raise Cain and go out and throw bricks at buildings. I'm never gonna advocate for that. But to see some counter protesting, I think we've seen a little bit of it. But to have a stronger force of people show up to the court and say, basically, you will not bully this verdict. That may be necessary at this point. What do you think, Casey?
Well, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because
agree.
What is the media going to do? The media is going to portray only anything negative about those protesters being out there. For example, I don't know if you saw it earlier, during one of the protests, it's already
missed
there.
a lot during the day here. Yeah.
Then you already missed that one of the BLM guys tried to beat up a journalist. That was
really?
already happening.
That happened just a little bit
2
earlier.
hours. Yeah, not even 2 hours ago.
Yeah, I was out for like the last couple of hours, so I missed all that.
They handcuffed him, threw him in the back of the van, and hauled him away. But so doing a counter protest seems logical, but you also have to be tactful, because if you don't, you're going to have all of this angst and this. I want to say anger, but it's the wrong term. But it's aggression that will build up, and you will start having fights, and you will start having people clash. And
Yeah, I think
that's
you're right.
not protesting. That is not protesting. And what's going to get shown is only the bad side of anybody that's supporting Kyle. So I believe in counter protesting, but I don't know if it would be super productive to do it here, right at the courthouse, because that's where they're all gathered. Doing something else somewhere to demonstrate and show and support, like,
might be important.
Yeah, it's stupid, but it gets scary.
Yeah, this is getting a little nerve-wracking for us citizens who I firmly believe in my right to self-defense. In the minute that we start setting precedences where self-defense is no longer considered self-defense, we are very much up a creek we cannot necessarily row back down. And Renee, yeah, I just really quickly, no, a jury can be out essentially in an unlimited fashion. Now, will the judge allow that? I think that's a question that is very fair. He probably will not. He would probably intervene at that point and say, well, it's a hung jury, which means that's at that point that is a verdict. And so he has the right to pull all of the jurors into the room and ask them to vote on a consensus argument at this point in time. I just don't. I'm not seeing the. Typically with this high profile of a case, right? And we saw this sort of with the Chauvin case. They sequester the jury specifically so that there is at least a pragmatic rush to get to a verdict of some sort, because it's extremely inconvenient to be sequestered. And it causes people to have more conversations in real time to get to a verdict in a timely manner. And as much as I think that can be good, I also understand there can be some bad that comes from it. My hope here, I guess, is that there is some at least, and the judge has alluded to it a couple of different times about misinformation being put out on the airwaves, with big media, with tech, and all that kind of stuff. But we have to. At this point, we have to assume that there is something that is going on inside that jury room that is causing them to not be able to come to a consensus that at least one individual can say definitively this is not this was self-defense. Because remember, that's the statute, right? All 12 have to agree that these charges apply across the board. And the fact that we do not have that consensus after 2 full days of deliberation leads me to believe that there is something going on inside that jury room that is making people nervous. Now, Casey touched on it. There has been some last night. I think you touched on, or maybe this morning a little bit. We have unconfirmed information that I hesitate to share, but I at the same time, I think people need to understand the full gravity of what's going on. There has been some unconfirmed information that there is potentially some severe concerns about repercussions from 2 jury members is my understanding. And I only point that out because it kind of it helps understand why something of this nature would take 2 days to deliberate. We can say all the things we want to say about the process, how they've gotten to where they're at right now. We can talk about all of the missed opportunities for specific procedural grounds for dismissal, all of that kind of stuff. But something's going on in that jury room, and to be a fly on that wall, right? That would be a very interesting thing. But I think it's time to start asking questions as to what's going on inside that jury pool that is allowing them to not come to consensus, and why is there seemingly, after 2 days of full deliberation, not a and more specifically, this goes back to kind of Kyle's lawyers should be asking, why are we not sequestering these juries at this point? Why are we allowing them to go home and participate? I understand, as a civic duty that the a lot of this is we go off of the individual's word. But we have to start asking, when we know that, and again, leaving all of the politics aside, we know that there are people who have tried to dox these jurors. We know that there has been attempts to make specific arguments as to why, if they don't come back with a certain plea, that there will be ramifications, and I really start to question the judgment of the court by not pulling them in and sequestering them, and then also offering furthermore protection to the jury, to make sure that they have the ability to move freely. This is getting awfully weird. I will say that.
Yeah, it's weird. Hey, I don't know what to.
It's not
really
unheard
say on
of.
what's
It's
happening.
just it's awfully strange for such a high profile case.
Yeah.
To not have a sequestered jury, B, to have had, as the judge was able to articulate, he told every juror that they were being watched, that they had tracked somebody down who was taking photos. I have to imagine that there's a tremendous amount of fear.
Sorry, I was just looking. I see a comment from Linda saying I'm blurry, so it must be my bandwidth. I was just going to pull up the video over here and see what it looks like. But yeah, when it comes to this whole thing, I don't understand exactly why it's being drawn out, but it's being drawn out. It's not under our control, so there's not much we can do about it. And so we have to just embrace it and still show our support and be there. Like, if we could be there, I would be there. I think that would be fantastic. But all in all, no action today, unfortunately. A hung jury, I saw someone asking question mark hung jury, which usually means there's a divide, or they don't all agree in the same way. And so there is multiple things that are going on there. Sorry, let me leave my WebEx for my work real quick so you guys don't hear that. But we'll just have to see what's going to happen tomorrow. We're going to try to tag team this again, I assume, and try to get stuff up. But wanted to make sure we got the information out to you. Well, I was hoping it would be a verdict, but because they came back earlier than I anticipated, I thought they would be waiting another hour, and then they would just be like, leave for the day. But
so
we'll just have to wait.
Can we address a couple of comments? I don't think this makes the judge a coward, actually. In fact, what he's doing is the hard way. The easy way would be to sequester this jury, rope them off, and make them make a decision. This is the hard part, is he's going to take the backlash for as many days as this deliberation goes on, no matter what the outcome is. He's doing the hard thing, which is, although albeit it is a high-profile case, and to not see a sequestered jury is strange in some ways. It's not unheard of, and that does not make the judge a coward. In fact, in many instances, he's been an incredible example of You have to consider two things. This is a judge that was first appointed by a Democrat leader. Second, was reelected by the people inside of his district. And to not sequester this jury is taking a tremendous risk in saying that it could be tainted. Now, that falls in line with some of the theories that we've talked about, I think, in different periods of time about what's going on inside that courtroom. And so I just wanted to address this because there may be some fear of backlash, but I think that the judge has done an incredible job, actually, at making sure that they can continue this case as unhindered as possible. I don't agree necessarily with some of those decisions, but this judge is he is essentially throwing himself under the bus already. There is nothing he can do that will bring him back in the light for people who decide no matter what no matter what the ruling ends up being, he will always be cast out in society for allowing this to happen in some ways from both sides potentially. So I disagree with the sentiment of that he's a bad judge. I think he's a great judge who has made some questionable decisions, but with grounds to do so.
Yeah. And so it's going to be interesting. We're still seeing some people pop in that are asking, "What did they go home for the day?" Yes. So
Yes.
It is called for the day. It's done. There's still people outside the courthouse by what I'm seeing. There's still protesters. All of that stuff is still going on. But we're going to have to wait until tomorrow. That's going to be the key. And maybe we might have to wait until Friday.
Yeah,
Usually it was 8 a.m. our time, but usually it's 9, I thought.
I thought I heard them say they were going to come back at 8 a.m., which would
come
make
in
sense
earlier.
if they're going to let out an hour earlier today than they did yesterday to come back an hour early tomorrow.
That could be. I didn't hear 8 a.m. In my head, it's always been 9 a.m. our time. So
if there is if there is a call to action, guys, it's simply this. It's that we need to show support for self-defense. We need to show support for the court. When we need to really show support for the jury to be able to make unfettered decisions that their lives, their livelihoods, and that the rule of law is believed to be accessible. And so, right. The only reason I brought up a potential counter protest or something of that nature is because right now, if you look at it from the social side, war of words, you have two groups who have threatened things. They've had no consequences, and they're gathering in numbers outside of that courtroom. And I bet that is very scary. The only way that we can win this in the court of public opinion is to not fall and stoop to their level. As I mentioned earlier, there are bricks already being laid out in the streets. There is going to be ruckus and chaos of some sorts, regardless of what the outcome is. What would be very, very, very important to see and very, I think, good to see is if a lot of people take to social media tonight and say, we need to have freedom in our justice systems. Please make it unknown or make it known to yourself, to your crowd, to your friends, to your family, whomever, that fair and free trials are a fundamental necessity in this country. And without them, it doesn't matter what kind of trial you're having, you won't get to a fair verdict. So show of force by being loud with your voice in this instance, showing up to cause chaos is just doing what we already know persuades and ultimately is a bad decision. I do not encourage anybody to go out there and cause more mayhem in the streets that may end with violence or of any type of demonstration that would escalate the situation. We simply need to show a force from a fundamental standpoint that when you have a trial, we expect the outcome to be unfettered by these individual groups who are coming in and making threats against jurors. Does that make sense to people?
To add to that, like that, you got to remember, like Justin is kind of talking about this here, but I want to elaborate a little bit. So with this, the important thing is, and this is going to sound weird, but even if the jurors find him guilty, that is the process. You have to ensure a right to a fair and free trial. And so it doesn't matter, even though we all have our own judgments on the way we feel it should go. If it does go that way, we got to question other things. We got to start looking at, did it go right? Is there other avenues? And that's where Kyle will have lawyers, his attorneys, and all of that go through all of this stuff. But we just need to support the right to a free trial. That's what we need to be there for. But we also can support Kyle and for what we believe is right. And I do believe he is in a very good position for self-defense, and he won't be charged for anything. In my opinion, that's what I believe. But the jurors are who are going to make that decision. Now, the judge can rule them slightly, but we'll have to see if he wants to call it a mistrial, and then the state can try to go after him again. But ultimately, they got sent home, unfortunately not sequestered, which bothers me. All I think we need to do is, unfortunately, be patient, show support, and if you want to go out to Kenosha, cool. Just remember, you're under the magnifying glass if you do anything wrong. Even if you pick up a flag and throw it, you're under the magnifying glass. So your right to protest is still there. Utilize it if you want to. And counter protest, cool. But just remember, anybody that's opposing this machine of BLM and Antifa, you're under the microscope. And you're going to be watched all the time.
Yeah, and let me propose to people who are in here saying, you know, this is a dead case. We know what the answer should be. No, we don't. We all have a premonition as to what we hope it will be, because we've watched the case, and if we were jurors, we could unequivocally be disqualified because of our stance currently. So let me be clear. When I say a free and fair trial, that does not mean that they're going to come back with the charge that I think is fair. But the hope is that if there is something of an egregious nature, is that we can revisit that. But remember, guys, juries all the time make decisions that we don't understand and exactly like. So the most important thing right now is to support the jury in making the most free and unfettered decision without having to feel the weight of potential consequence on them. That comes from the left and the right. So like I said, I think the best and most important thing right now is to voice your opinion about the security of the ability of those jury of the jury people to be able to make decisions without the threat on their life, livelihood, or opportunity to move forward. So, you know, whatever the law is that we may think, whatever decision we think that is clear cut, for all we know, they could be in there arguing about, well, do we give them a decision today or do we wait until Monday when maybe some of these people have to leave and go out of town? Okay. And that's stuff that jury pools will talk about in the background. So it can be, two things can be true at once. We can not like the way this is going, and we can also recognize that there might be a strategic play here from the jury specifically to try and let things kind of wind down before they come out with a verdict that they know that at least the standing public in front of the courthouse right now is not going to be okay with. So as much as it concerns us as time goes on, it doesn't necessarily mean that there is a high likelihood that he is convicted. It just is not very typical to see these things go this long. That's all.
Absolutely. So yeah, we'll see what's going to go on, guys. But we wanted to come in, try to capture if it was going to be a verdict. Turns out they got sent home. It's frustrating, but it's not under our control. We just got to follow it and show support where we can. We'll be covering as much as we can again tomorrow. I know I'll do my best and balance what I can between work. I'm sure we'll do what we did today. We had pretty much everybody rotating in and out all day. So if we can manage that, we might be able to make that work. We haven't organized it, but we'll figure that out later. Everybody, guys, have a great evening.
Yeah, and you know what? Time to throw up some prayers. You know, pray that the justice system is able to give a just verdict to the case. And it may not be what we want, but that is what we need to pray for as a united country, and stand firm in our belief that our court system can, in fact, operate unfettered. And that is a very, very important thing to do right now. So I'll just encourage everybody to throw up a prayer, make your voice heard. Don't go out and be an idiot. That will not help anybody. It will not help you. It will not help the cause. It will not help the case. What's going to happen is going to happen. It's just time for people to put prayers up and say, I believe in this system. And we hope to see this verdict, but we need to also be willing to live with other things. So, you know, justice will be served, and that's what we have in this country. Pray for it tonight. Pray for it to stay intact.
Absolutely. Well, guys, make it a great evening, and we'll be back tomorrow, and we'll see you later.